The Chargers got terrible news on Monday that Joe Alt is officially done for the season, and with star left tackle Rashawn Slater already done for the year, it is going to be incredibly hard for the Chargers offense to overcome.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. To make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Unfortunately, we have to start things off with the catastrophic news of the Chargers losing their star tackle, Joe Alt, for the remainder of the season, and of course the ramifications of that. And then the trade deadline is today, this afternoon. As you are hearing this, the Chargers have to make a decision if they're going to go out there and try to make an addition, whether that's going to be offensive line, whether that's going to be running back. Speaking of running back, we got our first update on Omarion Hampton from the head boss, Jim Harbaugh himself. And unfortunately, we're probably not going to see him until after the bye.
Which sucks because this was the week that he could have potentially come back and been activated off injured reserve. It just does not seem at all like that's going to happen. He basically told us as much. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. If your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. David, we're going to do our buy or sell show today, and we're going to push that to tomorrow now because of the big news happening with Joe Alt. And I want to talk about some potential trade targets now that we know the news. But it starts with just the impact and the reaction to just another brutal, devastating injury. I mean, this is the second of your kind of all-pro level tackles, because I do believe Joe Alt is of that caliber, now that you've lost for the season. And when he went down in the game, I think especially after him having the high ankle sprain already, you hoped, okay, well, maybe he'll still be back. Maybe he'll go on IR. Maybe he'll miss a chunk of the season, but potentially you could get him back at the end of the year, go into the playoffs with Joe Alt, who has obviously been such a huge impact player for you, and the results show themselves. I mean, 4-0 in games that Joe Alt has played completely, healthy in, right? And started him and finished them. 2-3 in the games that he's missed or he's got hurt in. And now at this point, he's either been or missed or been hurt in 5 of their 9 games, and they're just not the same without him. You saw it on Sunday, just how quickly, the offense kind of spiraled without him, and also losing Bobby Hart, which we'll talk about. But there's just no option, like with, Rashawn Slater. You were blessed enough to have a guy in Joe Alt that could take over that left side, but you still knew you had kind of a huge opening on the right side. Now, you don't have either of those guys, and it's hard just not to feel at this moment like, man, like, how much worse could it get for this group?
Daniel, I know we cover the Chargers, but man, it feels like with this team, they get hurt more than anybody else in the NFL. And it's not just the injuries, it's the level of impact. The most important players that get hurt and go down and miss significant time. And yeah, this one hurts, man. Like Joe Alt, a young phenom, a superstar in the making, a guy that was already so incredibly talented, very, very impactful, both as a run blocker and, of course, as that pass protector. And now he's done for the year. And you can't help but feel like this is a huge, massive blow. It's going to have uncurable ramifications on this season. That's how it feels. It's hard to feel anything but just sadness for Joe Alt and for the Chargers, because this is going to unfortunately hurt.
Yeah, it lowers their ceiling kind of, dramatically, honestly. Like, this was a year that if you had a healthy Joe Alt and a healthy Rashawn Slater, you feel like you could realistically not just challenge for a playoff spot, but challenge for the division and get Justin Herbert his first playoff win. Those were all things that were on the table with both of them. And not that it's impossible for those things to happen. The West obviously feels a little far-fetched at this moment, but making the playoffs doesn't seem impossible, but they're just not a lock to make it. Like, this was a team that, if healthy, felt like a true lock to make the playoffs, especially in a 6-3 start.
Yeah.
You have 6 wins and only 3 losses. Like, that is a really, really good start. But at the same time, now you just wonder, okay, well, how can they continue kind of on that trajectory and find a way to still make the playoffs? But more than that, it's just hard to have confidence that they'll continue to be able to keep Justin Herbert healthy. Like, you still have tough games coming up on your schedule: Steelers, Eagles, Broncos, Chiefs. Justin Herbert, according to Daniel Popper, already the most hit quarterback in the league, the most pressured quarterback in the league. And now he's losing the one guy that actually made that a little bit better for 4 of your 9 games this year. So I just think it does put kind of a ceiling on what this team can do. And it went from feeling like, man, even if you make the playoffs at this point, which team are you going to beat if you get there with their current flaws? Now, things can still be done. The trade deadline is tomorrow. We're going to get into that, but I do want to talk about kind of what it means now, because now it's looking like, at least for this foreseeable future, you're going to be with Jamari Sawyer at left tackle and Trey Pipkins back at right tackle.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, for Jamari, like we've seen this before, right? In his rookie season, he was asked to go out there and fill in for Rashawn Slater, and he played admirably. He played pretty good football. He was able to allow Justin to operate and to be able to make plays, and he came in this game and he played well. 22 pass blocking snaps, 0 sacks, and only 1 pressure allowed. Maybe he is more comfortable at left tackle, and that's something that the Chargers are going to desperately need. They need somebody to be able to be a just calming force on an offensive line that has seen so much change and so many injuries and so many different combinations. If he can go out there and at least provide some kind of competent play for Justin for this offense, it would be a huge lift. And we've seen him do it before, and hopefully he can come back here and play some quality football, because the Chargers desperately need it.
Yeah, I think the kind of red flag here as well, just with what the situation is at tackle right now, is like Trey Pipkins hasn't been able to stay super healthy, right? He's already missed time this year. Jamari Sawyer has already missed time this year. Where do you go after that? Austin Deckler is almost unplayable. Foster Sorrell has been basically unplayable since having to replace Mekhi Becton. They desperately need him to get back and stay back. But yeah, if you can get the 2023, the rookie version of Jamari Sawyer, that is a huge upgrade over Austin Deckler, right? Like, if you can get a 2023, 2022 Trey Pipkins, you can be okay. But I think this isn't just about the tackles. It's about what you didn't do on the interior of the offensive line as well, because this team, you could think, okay, it could be decent with the flaws on the interior if you have your 2 all-pro level tackles. Without them, that's all exposed. And I think the one kind of new good news that we have is that Jim Harbaugh did say that Bobby Hart is not expected to hit IR. And David, I can't believe I'm saying that in the year 2025, but the Chargers desperately need Bobby Hart back in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, when he came in, it seems like there was some competent play on that right side. He looked good. Like, he was able to provide some time. Obviously, the Chargers were doing some things to help him out with some chips and some extra blocking, of course. Like, that's going to happen, and they needed to do that. But even when they did put him out there and he was asked to block one-on-one, he looked good. So hearing that he's not going on IR is some glimmer of good news on an otherwise dark day.
Well, that's the interesting thing, too, is the Chargers have their bye week in a couple of weeks. So you do have that extra week built in where if someone's going on IR, you're expecting him to miss at least 5 weeks. But yeah, I mean, only 4 pressures allowed and 143 pass blocking snaps this year. This is someone we had really no expectations for once he joined the practice squad. And it does give you hope that maybe there's another guy out there they could find to give them better than what they have, because you're not looking for great. You're just looking for average at this point. And if you can get average, you can do something with that, right? But Bobby Hart not going on IR somehow feels like the best news that we got today. And I just think that if you can get a rookie Jamari Sawyer left tackle season, and you get kind of Bobby Hart staying on the trajectory of what he was able to do before injuring his groin and his ankle, of course, because it can never only be one thing. Okay, now you can at least, against average defensive lines, feel like you have a chance. But like, the Chargers have some monsters still left on the schedule, and like, you don't want to have Justin Herbert have to play hero mode. You don't want to have him be perfect every game for the Chargers to have to win. And that's kind of what it feels like right now. And now the big thing is, will Joe Ortiz make a move? Should they be making a trade on the offensive line? We're going to get into that and some potential trade targets on the offensive line and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I need to tell you about BILT because nobody likes paying rent. But if you must, you might as well get something for it, and that's where BILT comes in. BILT is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards that you can actually use. When you pay rent through BILT, you can earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But BILT isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your neighborhood. I love that with BILT, your rent finally works for you. One of the worst things about paying rent, you don't really get anything out of it, right? You're not putting money towards your house that you're going to own eventually. It feels like you're throwing money away. With BILT, you can actually get something for that. And it does feel like so rewarding. And whether you're grabbing food or from your favorite restaurant or going to the gym, you're still earning rewards. BILT has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use that link so they know he sent you. Well, David, I think the next thing becomes, what do the Chargers do? Can they be proactive about trying to improve something like we're talking about that alters the trajectory of your season, in a season where you've already got 6 of those wins, man? Like it feels so tough to kind of, punt on a 6-3 season. And I don't want this show to seem like we're doing that, right? We're not. The Chargers, can still be an okay team, but it does feel like this glaring need does have to be addressed. And we're sitting here on the day of the 2025 NFL trade deadline. If it doesn't happen today, then you're forced to pick pieces up off the scrap heap, basically. Guys that get released may be unhappy in other situations that don't get traded, or, just basically picking up off other teams' practice squads or off the streets. That's basically what it comes down to right now. And I just think, obviously, when you only have 5 picks in the 2026 draft, you have to ask the question, should the Chargers be trading any more picks away? But should the Chargers, even, knowing that they do have long-term options at tackle, even knowing that one guy isn't going to make the difference necessarily between them and a Super Bowl, should they still be really attacking this trade deadline to go find offensive line help?
Yes, 100% yes. And the reason is very simple. Because you want to get your quarterback through this entire season healthy and able to stay on the field. Because right now, at the rate that he's getting hit, the rate that he's getting abused, it is not sustainable, and it will happen. And I don't want to see it happen, because the Chargers don't have any chance if that man is not on the football field operating the offense for the Chargers, and that's a fact. So to me, that's quite simply enough. Go get more protection for your quarterback, because right now it has not been enough.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And, I told you before the show, to me, like, if you're trading even for a rental option, but it means potentially keeping Justin Herbert healthy and staying on the field through the rest of the season, that's worth something, right? And it doesn't have to necessarily be a 2026 round pick. You can start pushing into 2027.
Yeah.
But there's also salary cap ramifications and that, things like that as well, where the Chargers might have to get creative, and they're probably not going to be able to add any really big contracts here. But I do think it's not just really about the tackles. Like, offensive linemen are hard to find. There have been some that are reportedly being shopped right now that we're going to talk about. But it's also your guard depth, because right now you're playing Foster Sherrell way too much. He's given up 6 pressures in back-to-back games, 2 straight 6-pressure games, and he's allowed 15 pressures and 102 pass blocking snaps this season. We know how much we've talked about Zion Johnson. Zion Johnson's allowed 15 pressures in 401 snaps this season.
He's been quietly solid. Yeah,
102 snaps, 15 pressures, and Zion has that in 4 times as many snaps. That's how bad Foster Sherrell has been over the last couple of weeks. You need, hopefully, someone with, the perfect fit would be some guard tackle flexibility, so you have potentially an upgrade over one of the tackles that you're having to currently put out there, and some depth for Mekhi Becton, because the 2 guys you would have going in for him are Trey Pipkins and Jamari Sawyer are now your tackles. So looking at that, the one that stood out to me was Jordan Schultz putting out a post that Washington was potentially willing to move on from Nick Allegretti and also Andrew Wiley, the former Chief. And that's interesting. Allegretti was a full-time left guard in 2024 in Washington, but did have the 5th most pressures allowed. I'm not trying to make a lateral move here, right? Like, if someone's only going to be, a slight upgrade over what you have right now, doesn't seem to be worth it to me. I mean, in the right situation, maybe. The one that I liked a lot, though, is Andrew Wiley, who has over 2,000 snaps at guard in his career, over 3,500 snaps at right tackle in his career, and last season, as their full-time right tackle out of any tackle with at least 500 blocking snaps, he ranked 21st in pass blocking efficiency, right? That's above average for tackles. Yeah. Now, if you're telling me that guy's available with that guard tackle flex, man, I'm definitely picking up the phone call and making that if I'm Joe Ortiz.
Yeah, about to say, I'm not just picking up the call. I'm trying to make the deal. I'm trying to get that one done. That seems like something that the Chargers could do that would improve the protection for Justin Herbert. And even this year, 139 pass blocking snaps, only 1 sack and 6 pressures allowed. So that's quality play. And I love the tackle guard flex. I think, to me, this seems like one of the more kind of premier candidates that really fits kind of hand in glove.
Yeah, I think he would be my number one option as someone that feels realistic, fits contract-wise, it's doable, and also, a guy who was a full-time right tackle last year and has played right guard this year, where you've had the most issues with Mekhi Becton in and out. Evan Neal is a guy I've seen a lot, has been a healthy scratch for the Giants this year. We're talking about a former 7th overall pick that could use a fresh start, obviously. But, man, he's only had, only played right tackle at the NFL level. He's never had an regular season snap at guard. They did play him at guard in the preseason, and he allowed 5 pressures in 2 preseason games at guard and 46 pass blocking snaps. I did see Alex Insdorf, who did put out a great article of some realistic Chargers trade options, which I saw Kevin Zeitler. And that one was interesting, Dave, because that was a guy we were very interested in the regular season or in the offseason to, bring in as a short-term rental to fill in. Maybe he's available now with the Titans. He is a starter. The other guys I've talked about are reserves and are more likely to be able to be moved. But yeah, hey, maybe that's another thing where it's like, okay, if we couldn't do it then, maybe we can kind of make it right now.
Yeah, I mean, with Kevin Zeitler, he's been a guy that's performed at a very, very high level in this league for a very, very long time. You kind of know what he's going to bring to the table. He's just solid. And right now, the Chargers need solid on their offensive line. So obviously, I am all in favor of that move. And maybe they'll look at another position on the offensive line. And if they do, look to potentially upgrade center. I know a lot of people out there might like to hear that. Yeah. There's a center from the Cleveland Browns. His name is Ethan Powich. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name, but he's been pretty solid this year. 359 pass blocking snaps, only 2 sacks and 11 pressures allowed. And he's played 545 snaps. So he's been on the field. He's been productive. The Cleveland Browns are going in the opposite direction than the Chargers are hopefully trying to continue to go. And if there's a deal to be made there, he's someone that to me makes some sense.
Yeah, and I mean, center wasn't really on my radar when we were going into this, just because obviously we just know how the Chargers feel about Bradley Bozeman, and it just doesn't feel like they're trying to find a replacement for him as much as we all would wish. I know, David, you were telling me before the show, hey, if the Raiders want to, get a little frisky and really don't like Jackson Powers-Johnson that much, I know a team that missed out on him that would really love to have him. That fits the mentality. It seems like he's fallen out of favor there, which seems crazy because we know how talented he is, but also does seem like a head case I would take my chances with either way. Last one here, Ben Cleveland. I was looking at the Ravens just because of the ties. The Chargers already made a trade with the Ravens. Joe Ortiz comes from the Ravens, and Ben Cleveland was a name that, I've seen before. I've thought about in other years. He's been kind of on the show we do here. Hey, maybe the Chargers could go get him. I thought about it last year too. Drafted by Joe Ortiz. Played with Greg Roman in his offense, so you don't have much of a learning curve there. Never has been a full-time starter, though, as a former third-round pick. But the last time he was kind of called upon to be a starter, played well in 2023. And between 2022 and 2023, he had 133 pass blocking snaps at right guard and only allowed 5 pressures and 1 sack. So very serviceable. That sounds like an upgrade to me. I think the hard thing with these guys is, like, they're not going to let somebody take over Zion Johnson's job, and Mekhi Becton will be the starter if he's healthy. This is more just like an insurance because Mekhi Becton, has probably played about half of the snaps so far this season for the Chargers. So we know what the downgrade there, if it's not Mekhi Becton out there, and he has been a big upgrade from who else they have on the roster. Either way, do something, find somebody, keep Justin Herbert healthy, because I don't have to remind you guys that last year, part of the reason they lost to the team they're playing this weekend against the Steelers was because Justin Herbert got hurt in that game, or re-aggravated his injury in that game when it was unable to play for most of the second half.
Yeah.
So that's what you're trying to avoid. And man, it's a really scary opposition they're going to be playing against with the current problems they have on the offensive line this weekend. So more on that later on. But before that, we need to get into some more news that we got from Jim Harbaugh, who slipped into his press conference Monday that Omarion Hampton probably won't be back until after the bye. So we're going to get into that, and if there are any trade targets at that position the Chargers could target, and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your line bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making a late push. Lakers have been hot. Definitely can check them out on FanDuel. But of course, I'm always looking at the NFL, and I'm looking at the Chargers. The odds are out, David. The Chargers for Sunday night, 3-point favorites to win against the Steelers in prime time. Surprising for sure, especially with the news. It'll be interesting to see in the next couple of days if that number moves around at all. Obviously, you get 3 points for home field advantage, right? But either way, Chargers still expect to have a really good chance to get their 7th win of the season, according to FanDuel. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up to play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. David, much more to get into, including some more injury news, and really the first update that we've gotten at all on Omarion Hampton since he had to leave the game against the Washington Commanders. What was reported as a high ankle sprain. So we're going to get into that, but I do want to just thank the everydayers, especially knowing that you're a fan of this team and you keep coming back, and we keep being here to, commiserate with you, to find the hope with you, to be as optimistic as we can while also still trying to be realistic. But thank you guys for sticking through us in the good times and the bad times. And, the season's not over yet, but thank you for making this your first listen. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out Locked On NFL, where you can talk and hear about all the teams who might be putting players up on the trade block around the league, with 2 shows a day with Tyler the Madman Rowland, who you had on the show last week, David, on the crossover episode, and my guy Tony Wiggins in the barbershop on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. More news, and we're not getting a lot of good news these days, but this one is Jim Harbaugh, when asked about Omarion Hampton, and kind of just taking the reins himself a little bit, basically saying, so you guys don't keep asking me about it. Omarion Hampton's activation window will likely not be open this week where we stand right now, and he will likely not be back until after the bye week. So the Chargers, David, have 2 more games before the bye week. They have the Steelers this week, and they're going to play the Jaguars the week after that. When moderately healthy, 2 games it feels like the Chargers could win. But with where they're at right now, 2 games they could really use Omarion Hampton back for. And unfortunately, kind of from what we've seen, people saying, hey, he's still on a boot on the sideline. Maybe he's not as close to coming back as we think. It just sucks because obviously this would have been the week to come back, and man, they could really, really use his help.
They definitely could, because as of right now, he's still leading the team in rushing yards, which is ridiculous.
Justin Herbert's catching up, though.
Yeah, Justin Herbert's hot on his heels for sure,
yeah,
but the leading rusher for the team, even now, and he's missed, 4 games already, is still Omarion Hampton. So the Chargers desperately need him to come back, man. It was so annoying to see that he was really starting to hit his stride, and you see just the smallest of creases and he just explode through it for big plays. And I was like, yes, we're going to get this all season. And then he goes on IR, and I'm like, no, because he's such an electric player, and you see it already. You already know, this guy's got the goods, and hopefully he is ready to go when they come back from the bye, because there's still some very crucial games at the end of the season, games against the Broncos, games against the Chiefs, that it would be really, really nice to have Omarion Hampton for.
When you wonder how much of it is just because he's such a young player and that he's a rookie, where they don't want to push it and might just be being, extra cautious with it. And it just sucks. Again, it's like the Chargers and their luck. Like, this was a freak thing where he gets tripped by Frankie Louvu, on a play where he's trying to run into the flat. Like, it's just, nothing really he could have done about it. And all of a sudden, if the Chargers just didn't have ankles, if ankles didn't exist, the Chargers might be undefeated this year. But I like what Kimani Vidal has been able to do, filled in admirably, but it's been hit or miss so far.
It's been hot and
and
cold
I think
for
the
sure.
one thing with Omarion Hampton is he showed he could kind of overcome some bad blocking at times, and that's just kind of what the Chargers need. I mean, they're the lowest graded run blocking team according to Pro Football Focus in the entire league. So the one thing that Omarion Hampton had, hey, I could break 2 or 3 tackles and maybe I bust it for a 40-yard gain. Kimani Vidal has had some big runs as well. Has more 100-yard rushing games than, Omarion Hampton has this year. But still, it feels like, with both of them, you'd be in a much better spot. And I think the question becomes now, David, is with the trade deadline today, should the Chargers, who have already been reported to be looking for a running back, and that's kind of was our first sign there, like, hey, maybe Hampton will be gone longer than we thought, should they be picking up the phone and trying to find another guy?
To me, no. Honestly, I just don't think like it's the best use of the limited resources that they have for 2026 to use on a running back. I just don't like that. That kind of level of compensation that's going to be required, no matter what it is, because it's been proven time and time again that you're able to find running backs that can provide quality production for you. Whether it be, a Jarrett Patterson or obviously Kimani Vidal, who has been able to step in and provide some quality play. Now, if they were to make that move and they were to bring somebody in, obviously there's one guy, at least on the list, that I think would look fantastic in lightning bolts, and that would be Breece Hall. He's been fantastic this year. 117 carries, 581 yards, a couple of touchdowns, averaging 5 yards a carry. The contract's a little heavy. It's $4.3 million. Obviously, that's going to be prorated, and the Chargers don't have a lot of cap space, so they're going to have to move money around to really accommodate any kind of deal. But if they were in the market and they had to have somebody, Breece Hall is a guy that is still young, that could make sense now and for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. I don't necessarily think that they should trade for a running back, but I do think I would go the opposite direction and just say if you're going to, because the thing is like, yes, whoever you get is going to stay involved, but it's Omarion Hampton's show when he comes back, no matter what, right? That's only potentially 2 games from now. So you're talking about potentially a 2-game rental for a starting running back, which to me is just like, with the team, like if you're going to keep the offensive line, but then trade picks away for a running back, like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? So to me, I don't think Breece Hall is getting moved. The latest I saw from him is that they were leaning towards keeping him, but like that just doesn't really make sense to have kind of 2 guys like that long term with him and Omarion Hampton, because Omarion Hampton's a rookie. He's going to be the guy for the next 4 years after this season. Are you going to pay money to 2 different running backs like that? Probably not. So I think Kimani Vidal, a good compliment, to Omarion Hampton. It can be a good RB2 is I think what he's shown us so far this year. Another guy on the Alex Insdorf list that I think would make more sense, Jerome Ford from Cleveland.
Yes.
Falling out of the rotation a little bit. And this is like the price I'd be willing to send. Like if you're talking about a 2027 7th round pick or something like that, that's about what I'm willing to spend. A 2027 6th or 7th round pick. Unless you're going to be getting someone that is going to be protecting Justin Herbert and keeping him from hitting IR this season. That's a different story. For pretty much any other position, I'm looking at that because it's a guy, career 4.3 yards per carry on 337 attempts and also has 102 catches over the last 3 years.
I like that.
Someone that's been productive, someone that, I think would help in the short term, but still would be a nice compliment for the rest of the season and would be much more in the price range I'd be willing to give up. So I think the last question here, David, with the trade deadline coming up today, is there any other position you think the Chargers should be trying to trade for?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're trying to add to any other position group, maybe it's defensive line. I mean, that's an area where they can always be looking for guys that can make an impact. And Also, another place on the roster that's suffered some injuries that the Chargers are trying to weather. I do like some players in that room, but I think that's probably the only other area outside of offensive line. Obviously, it's offensive line over everything else, but we have also said ad nauseum that it's extremely difficult to make those kind of deals happen. But I think D-line's probably the only other spot I'd look at.
Well, and I think the thing is for me is like obviously the run defense hasn't been good overall for the Chargers this year. You lost to Rashawn Slater and Tito, like you were talking about, so you have lost some guys there. But I think the thing is here is like this would have to be something where you're just trying to kind of buy low on somebody that's going to be in the fold for years to come. Because I do think that with this position specifically, you do have needs in the short and the long term. Because really, the only kind of capable starters you have coming back in the mix in 2026 is, you know, your rookie this year, Jamari Caldwell, and Justin Aboigbe, who's been kind of a revelation in his second season. Like Teair Tart's on a 1-year deal, Deshaun Hand, 1-year deal, Tito Abonia, last year of his rookie contract, and then who else is there, right? Naquan Jones is on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
That's it. That's who you have. So I do think, I saw Alex Insdorf mention Devondre Sweat, who's a guy I know you were really high on in the draft coming out of Texas. Man, that would be a couple of big boys you could have in there and pair with, Jamar Caldwell and the size of Devondre Sweat. But yeah, I mean, run defense, pass rush wise, you could use some juice. To me, I'm only making that trade if it's someone maybe you think could be in the mix, because that is also kind of a thinner position than I think is on most people's radar going into 2026 and beyond. Now, the Chargers have shown they can, take some guys and make them play a lot better with them. We saw with Poona Ford, Teair Tart has been awesome with them. And that's, I think, the hard part of these conversations, David, is like with the offensive line, you feel like you need a certain baseline level of that player is already playing, because you can't actually expect them to go to the Chargers and you to get more out of them than what the last team they were playing on was getting out of them, except for Bobby Hart. So maybe, maybe Mike Devlin is that guy. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. The good news is tomorrow we'll have news one way or the other. Either the Chargers are going to stand pat and kind of make a statement on what they think this season is, or they will be making a trade, and then we'll probably be back here for a live show tomorrow night to talk about it. But with where they're at right now, I think we kind of see where their ceiling is. They have, not even till the end of today to figure out if they're going to change that. But to make sure you guys don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show every day on all of our social media at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. Like I said, we didn't get into Buy or Sell Tuesday today. We have some that we're going to use tomorrow. If you guys still want to contribute to that, you can go on the post on Twitter. I'll put another post out on Instagram so we can get you guys involved there if you want to, or you can call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924 and give us your 30-second Chargers voicemail there. But obviously, tough day. It's been a season from hell in a lot of ways, but the Chargers are 6-3. If they can make a couple moves, there is a chance that they can keep this thing afloat and make a real playoff run in 2025. We're going to get more into that tomorrow. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.